Hey, welcome back. I wanted to jump on and do a quick kind of mid-year review of what I've read so far. We're a little bit past mid-year, but review of my reading this year. This year I've really made an effort to go into some new genres. Um, a major one is nonfiction. I've also made an effort to try and get out of my comfort zone a little bit, but to be fair, most of what I've read this year is still in the sci-fi fantasy genre. I've read a little bit outside of that. It really always kind of comes back to that. So today I wanted to go through some of my favorites from the year and maybe some duds or some do not finish. I kind of tend to not finish rather than read something that I'm really not connecting with. There's always an exception to that, but most of the time duds for me are going to be DNFs. And then, if it's something that I anticipate I want to come back to, I will try and come back to it. I can't think of any right now, but I know for sure there's been some instances where something didn't connect with me and then I tried it later on down the road and it did. So that's always a possibility. And lastly, what I hope for you to get out of this is finding something that you would like. Even if it was a DNF for me, that doesn't mean that it's not going to connect with somebody else. There's been plenty of books that I don't like that loads of people love. I'm not. I know that lots of people like lots of different things. So hopefully you can find something, even if it's a dud for me or a favorite for me. Great. So these are in somewhat chronological order, just from the way that I did the list. So number one, first highlight of the year was the first book that I read, Wind and Truth. Now, Wind and Truth is the fifth book in the Stormlight Archive series one of that. There is another five books planned. Now, these are behemoths. So this is the fifth book out of all five of these, and these are very long books. So I struggle with the same thing that most people do with recommending Brandon Sanderson. My favorite series of his is the Stormlight Archive. So it is difficult to recommend that because it is an undertaking. But I think that said, I know that Win and Truth had a little bit of pol- maybe polarity around it. Some people didn't like it as much. I really enjoyed it. I Sanderson broke up how he typically was writing these books in kind of parts, and he went to a different style, and that is days, because there was a certain plot point that had it was very quickly approaching and there was only days to come. So this book actually only covers a couple days, whereas usually it's a bit longer in the other books. I think I've heard Brandon Sanderson describe this one as a little bit like an Avengers Endgame or something like that. It's where this first part of the story really all comes together. The pacing was good, and that all the information in there and all of the story points were really well thought out. I am a bit of a fanboy for this series, so it's going to be kind of hard to displease me in this. I really flew through this. I think I was reading 100 pages or more a day there for a while. It came out right before the beginning of the year, and I kind of got to it right at the beginning of the year. So I had some time off from work. I was flying through it. I really enjoyed the whole thing. This whole series, every single book has been a five-star book for me. I think that one of my favorite things about it is that Brandon really touches on a lot of really deep, human like stories within this really long series. You really get to come along with all of these characters in a really deep and profound way. There's a lot of messages and a lot of lessons that I've learned from this, and I think most people can get something out of it. Uh, if you haven't tried out Stormlight, The Way of Kings is probably one of my top favorite books. I love The Way of Kings. I think it's my favorite in the series. So Wind and Truth, first favorite of the year. So first dud of the year. My first dud of the year was Shady Hollow by Gino Black. I I had a good feeling about this book. It's kind of a cozy mystery. The premise is cool, and I typically enjoy mystery, but this one just it wasn't connecting with me. Um, the characters and the prose is just a little bit more whimsical than I like out of stuff. That said, if you like really cozy stories that are just pretty easy to read, even in a mystery context, I think this would probably be for you. It's a pretty short book. Seems like it would be a pretty easy read. I think I got probably 30-40% in, and it just wasn't connecting with me, so I didn't finish. So if you like lighthearted, it's kind of a village setting with all of the characters are animals. So you got the talking animals, you got the kind of humanized animals, stuff like that. Just didn't land for me, but if any of that sounds interesting to you, it might connect for you. Second highlight for the year, The Wager by David Graham. Now, this was a little bit out of my usual reading style. This is kind of a historical fiction, and I ended up enjoying it. The story itself is very interesting and almost sounds like a fiction to me. It's a story about a basically a mutiny that happens on a ship, several ships during British wars of around 1740. If you like historical fictions, this is probably going to land for you. It's really engaging in that it tells a really kind of complex story from many different viewpoints. There was mutiny on a ship. There was, betrayal. There is lots of starvation, lots of really bad scenarios that are going on these collections of ships. And then, the aftermath of it is the British courts just don't really know how to handle any of this. So very engaging story. Again, if you like historical fiction, I think you're going to enjoy this. Has kind of a pirate vibe to it. It's not really pirates because it's British warships, but really informative as to how how it, things happened then. As far as there's part of it where they're talking about how the sailors are recruited for these ships, and it's not really recruiting; it's basically just forced onto these ships for the wartime. Very very interesting to hear about that and how that happened back in those times. Next highlight is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I think I've talked about this one a couple times just because I do want to get to the next couple books. I also saw that they're getting a new like special edition, which is really cool. I'm a sucker for those special editions. Jade City is about a family who basically runs this crime syndicate within this city, and they have powers from jade that they wear on their person. What's different about this, as far as a magic system goes, is I really enjoyed the fact that the magic system is a little bit vague. Brandon Sanderson's books, your magic system is always very clear cut. He's always got lots of rules. Fonda Lee in this book really kind of shrouds that magic system. And yeah, it seems like they get strength, they get, perception, whatever that is from jade, and it's in certain amounts depending on how much jade they have on their person. But it's really nebulous, and it's kind of cool because it provides a lot of mystery to the story. It's a fairly, I would call, medium-sized book. You get a lot of family drama in it. Something that connected to me is there's like some auditing within it. I know that's going to sound boring to most people, but it's from a mystery perspective, kind of a detective perspective, and it was actually really engaging, really cool. So Jade City by Fonda Lee, definitely recommend. Uh, I will probably get to the next books in the series soon, and I'll let you know how I like those as well. Second dud for me was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is crazy for me because I know this is a very widely liked book. And this is a book that I finished. So calling it a dud is a little bit out of what I would define as a dud, but I it just you know, I thought that the characters were just a little flat for me. I'm definitely going to give the series a second chance, Robin and Hobb a second chance, whatever that looks like. And like I said, I did finish it. I don't hate the book by any means. It does have a somewhat engaging protagonist, and I think it's got some potential for later on. I anticipate the rest of the series is probably pretty good, at least because I think that the first book really has to establish these characters, and maybe in the second book they kind of come to their full growth or full potential, whatever that looks like. This is a little bit more fantasy oriented than I'm used to. I really am a sci-fi reader and sci-fi lover at heart, so fantasy sometimes misses for me. But I think if you like fantasy, this one's probably going to land. I think it's one of those kind of classics at this point, as far as Robin Hobb just is very widely liked. So try it out if you like fantasy, but I think this probably has a pretty wide audience that would enjoy it. I'm actually out of duds, so that's great. I only had two that I really thought were that I needed to bring up here. It's been a pretty decent year now. That said, I haven't had like a ton of this is a favorite for me of all time. When in truth kind of hits that, but I knew that going in. Um, so kind of a middling year for me. I've talked several times on the channel about Dungeon Crawler Carl. That's kind of hitting that for me. I'm really enjoying that series, and I'm been really pleasantly surprised by it. So next highlight was Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. Now this really appealed to me because it's a standalone, and I think it was a serialized book at the time. So she wrote it through kind of a blog and released it chapter by chapter. I really enjoyed Sword of Kaigen. Really cool magic system with there's it's almost like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but grown up and for adults. Um, it's very violent. It's very real. I think there's some really interesting things in this book that I kind of hope that ML Wang revisits, because there's some stuff that I would love to hear more from in this book. Specifically, one of our main characters has kind of a crime fighting vigilante past, and I think that's a really interesting thing that could have some more stories in it. The main plot line is there's this family that is the defender of this empire, and they can make this sword out of ice that is like a molecule thin, so it can cut through anything. And they're the only family that can do that. But there's a lot of these people who have, I think it's called Gia, who can create ice out of things. There's the antagonist, like an airbender kind of vibe. It's very engaging. I listened to this audiobook and I thought that the performers did a fantastic job. I've mentioned Blood Over Bright Haven a couple times on the channel. That might be coming up next for me, and this was really the gateway for that. I read Sword of Kaigen, and I thought I need more of this author, so that's kind of where that came from, and I'm looking forward to more from ML Wang. So another highlight I set up top is that nonfiction was kind of a goal for me this year. I just wanted to, read some things that helped me learn, that helped me slow down and appreciate the world around me, and I think that I've really accomplished that thus far. Some highlights from that is The Power of Ritual. This book really, I think it really teaches how to slow down, how to appreciate smaller things in life, how to appreciate ritual throughout your life. This is something I'm still working on, but this book really opened my eyes to that. And I think Power of Ritual, very, very good book if you want just kind of, you know, some ideas on how to create some ritual in your life and create some maybe time for you to recharge. I think it's got a lot of different things for a lot of different people. I also read When Breath Becomes Air. This was a this is a tough book. If you if you don't want something emotional, just be aware that it is. This is a surgeon who was diagnosed with cancer, and so you just kind of know from the beginning going in that it's going to have some sad points. But that said, it's kind of one of those stories that will help you realize that life is precious and you should really take advantage of every part of life. Be present, be mindful of what you're doing. If you have a good thought about somebody, let them know. Don't just hold that in for yourself. I've talked about braiding sweetgrass a couple times on the channel. That's been a major highlight for me. Um, just a really great book on I would say that it's a book on sustainability, but it's also just kind of a book on the way that we should communicate with the earth around us and with other people even, and with the food that we eat. It's very multifaceted. So that one I would not hesitate to suggest that one to anybody. I think that was a definite highlight for the year. If you have any interest in seeing my full, read this year or what I've read and the ratings that I have, head over to my Goodreads. I'll link that in the description below. A couple years back, I started doing a thing with my reading challenge over on Goodreads, where I was putting it at 50 or 60 or whatever I thought that I would probably read that year. What I was finding is that I was trying really hard to make that challenge, whereas now what I'm doing is I'm putting it at 10 to 12 just so I can track how many I'm reading. Because what I've discovered is I enjoy reading for leisure, and I enjoy reading for learning. And if I kind of put a big number on that, I lose myself a little bit in that plot. Reading challenge this year, I am at 25 books of my goal of 10. So we are now kind of getting close to end of July. I at this point I don't really know how many more I'll read, but I'm going through and I'm reading however much I'd like and however much I have time for and not feeling bad about it. So I think that's my goal right now. Don't feel bad about a hobby. Just keep on going, do what you enjoy, find books that you love, and the ones that you don't, that's okay. Somebody else will love them. It's totally fine. So there we go. Highlights of the year. A couple misfires for me. That's fine. Uh, if you've got any recommendations or sound off on what you're reading down below, we would all love to hear what's going on in everybody's reading life. I will be back next week with another weekly update, and I'll see you then. Bye.